Kia ora, Simon.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi Donna, my name is Simon Starr. I am a stonemason living in Wakefield, just outside of Nelson. Been in construction all my life, 45, 46 years. That's me.
So tell us, why do you support Nelson Tasman Hospice?
Well, it's very close to the family's heart with regards to the treatment that it afforded Allison, my late wife of nearly 4 years now, mother to Todd, Jessica and Dean. It was just a blessing that they stepped in when they did to make things a lot easier for us. Had no idea what hospice was about. Never really had any dealings with them other than from overseas. My parents, who weren't very well at the time, they had issues, life-threatening issues that the equivalent of hospice came in and helped, and it was just something that had to be done, and they took us under their wing, and we went through with it, and yeah, it was great to have them on board.
And what did you learn about hospice services in the community through that contact with Allison?
Okay, well, until then it was never crossed my mind that hospice did what they did. It was only when we were heavily involved that we understood the care that was afforded to the community, not necessarily in the facility of Nelson Tasman Hospice, but outside. Having previously lost a friend 3 or 4 years before Allison, a close friend here in New Zealand, we were aware that the service they gave was pretty keen. I mean, it was just there, and it was free, and you don't have to hold your hand out too long for them to bring you in, and it was just cool, and that's what stayed with me. As soon as Allison was diagnosed, it was a case of, okay, hospice are in the background. They'll give you the shirt off their back. I sort of look on them as a friend you've never been introduced to yet, a good friend, and it'll be a friend for life. Okay?
So tell us, Simon, you and your family have been long-term supporters since Allison passed away in 2018.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you and your family have actually done in terms of supporting and fundraising for the service?
Okay. When Allison passed away and we realised that the service was certainly needed and for the likes of our family, and certainly loads of other families who are at present suffering in all aspects. It doesn't have to be cancer, but anything life-threatening, where life-limiting, it's taking its toll. And it's only when we realised the value that we thought, okay, well, funding is there for hospice to an extent from the government. It's not enough to fund for the entire year, and there are shortfalls. And how do you plug up the holes in that? The only way to do it is through the likes of the hospice shops, charities that sort of donate a certain amount of their takings to hospice, I guess, and then there's members of the public like myself and our family members who just need to do things to bring some revenue in, however silly those things are. And I often use the case of various charities in the UK who people just jump in a bath of baked beans for 12 hours and get £100 for it. And I'm thinking, okay, it doesn't matter what you do. Never assume that you haven't got the time to do this, because you have. And obviously, associated with hospice, that's my primary charity. Other people are Westpac Ambulance, because they were there when that service was needed. So it's your choice, and it is charity, and you don't get anything back from it personally, other than the thought that you've helped, and you've helped possibly your family members in the future, and other friends and family who have succumbed to some pretty devastating effects in their life. So in sort of honour of Allison and in support of hospice, Dean and I originally, my eldest son in the UK, originally took on Everest Base Camp back in 2019, October. Something that was the furthest thing from my mind until Dean rang up and suggested this and said, look, I'm doing it, do you want to come along? We can support mum and hospice. And that was great. Got into the training the best I can, as did Dean. Dean had done previous things in Kilimanjaro on a personal basis, but this was for hospice. This was for Allison. And obviously during the build of the new hospice in Nelson, they needed funding as well, and there were various avenues in which you could donate, which we did. We bought a bench for Allison, nicely engraved, thankfully, and other benches were there, and people had bought trees, and it's just money in the bank, and that's what's needed. Sounds horrendous to sort of to look at it as money to save lives, but you're not saving lives, you're just making those lives comfortable, and it's really personal, and it's something that Sorry. Why do they say sorry? Everybody says sorry.
Yeah, just take a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what you were saying there is that it clearly is personal.
Yeah. And as a result of our association with the hospice, we're just continuing to carry on and do what we can do to bring some money in the coffers. Everest was great, and we were intending to do other things, but COVID got in the way. But things are planned, and we will continue to do this probably for as long as I live. Dean is adamant, Todd is adamant to support, Jessica's backing us all the way. It's a family effort.
So you're doing another second journey. You're off to Mont Blanc.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've done some investigation on it, and again, it was an event or a journey that we were destined to do. Should have been in March of lockdown year. Was never going to happen because at the time Europe was getting hit hard as COVID sort of started its rampage, if you like. So we backed off, and 6-7 months ago I gave Dean a call and said, look, are we still up for Mont Blanc or not? And he said, yeah, fine, well, we can do it. So he did all the paperwork and booked in where we had to go. Flights are booked, so we're off to Mont Blanc on the 15th of June, or I am, to London to meet Dean. Then we fly to Geneva and ultimately go to what we call base camp now at Mont Blanc, I guess, where we all start. But we've got a good instructor there. We've had a few Zoom calls with him. I am absolutely confident in him and his ability to help us through this, and I just hope that he's confident with me, because I've done all I can do, and Dean's doing really well. So we're looking forward to that, with Mont Blanc being the highest summit in the Alps in Western Europe, the 11th highest summit on the planet at 4,807 metres, which is 15,000 feet, which is pretty damn high. And again, hypoxia could be an issue. It wasn't at Everest, I was very fortunate, but I'm a little bit older now. And a little bit more vulnerable to things. And I guess the exciting bit is meeting up with Dean and doing this as father and son for mum, for hospice, and just generally enjoying it. Don't know that I enjoyed it so much last time, because not so much the endurance, but just the overwhelming thought of, why am I doing this? It's for Allison. It's for hospice. So there was a bit of pressure on me, I felt. Dean was really cool with it. He was just tugging me along and, come on, Dad, we can do this. And we did. This time I feel a little bit more assured of myself. Certainly not frightened about it. Not a lot frightens me now. The only doubt I've got is the opposite, COVID. I don't particularly want to catch that with 5 weeks to go, 4 weeks to go, 3 weeks to go. don't need that. So I'm not keeping my distance because I'm a pretty weary sort of guy anyway, but I just want to make sure that I am where I need to be to make this a success for Allison Hospice and my family.
So how can people support the fundraiser?
Well, I am no technical whiz. I'm a stonemason, so I use hammers and chisels and fingers and thumbs. On the technical side of it, I think there's Give a Little pages coming up. Hospice are obviously involved. It comes at a very, very cool time for us, because when I came and saw you originally and said, look, we want to do this, you said, well, that's great, because we are coinciding it with an awareness event for hospice. So that's great. So watch this space. Basically, I'm sure Todd and his team will notify everybody, and it'll be out there. And yeah, just give if you can. Do your best.
Well, the support that you and your family give hospice, and continued support, is incredibly special to us, Simon.
Good.
And so we want to thank you and your family.
Yeah, I know, and that's huge. To do something. I've said this before, I don't particularly like, how do you say it, celebrity, but sometimes you have to dig deep and stick your ugly mug out there and show people that this is what you've got to do to sort of bring money in, because the money wouldn't come in unless idiots like us did idiotic things like we're doing. But people do it every day, and not many people get that much publicity and that much out of it for themselves, and that's where we want to be. But it's massive, and we'll carry on, and there'll be other events. Maybe we can bring some others in on it, and as I understand it, we're going to have some cool sponsors for this one.
So Simon, tell me what it meant for Allison and for you and your family to have that support of the care and support of the services.
Well, for Allison, it was I don't know whether you call it an insurance, but it was just knowing that you couldn't have a better team in your corner. They'd been there and done that on all sorts of fronts, with all sorts of horrendous diseases and circumstances, and they knew what needed to be done. When you are poorly and you are failing fast, you need a team that is going to be there to give you the best advice, the best care, to be in contact with you whenever, wherever, because we travelled a lot during Allison's illness. We were always going to travel, but we had to bring it forward. And there was never a time when we thought we were too far away to contact hospice. We'd contact them. We'd had emails when we were abroad and when we came home for more treatment, and it was just one of those things that you knew you're not on your own. And I guess that's what friendship is. So they were our friends, and they still are, and they will be for us for the rest of our lives, and they're a bloody good friend to have.